p.m. on Channel 2.
Chairman of the board himself, Frank Sinatra. She'll have some interesting stories to tell about Frank. Ricardo Bustos and Brian De Shazer worked at various times as secretaries for the very demanding Zsa Zsa Gabor. You can imagine the stories they have to tell. And speaking, the matriarch herself, the inside story when the hired help tells all. We'll be right back. What's Zsa Zsa really like? I mean, she was on the program, as you know, just a while ago, and she's very flamboyant, obviously, very controversial. Is she kind to people who work for her?
She has very little spurts, mostly not very nice at all. Every now she'll like give you a gift or something, little something, but it's usually used or something from her closet. Nothing bought. But she's terrible. Terrible to work.
So we've gone from not very nice to terrible. How terrible? Why? What do you mean? What did she do?
Constant berating, you know, yelling, screaming, expecting way too much from a person.
Ricardo, is that about the way you remember her?
Well, I'll never forget the first day I went to work for her because I made the mistake of calling her Zsa Zsa. And she said, you know, we had to refer to her as Miss Gabor, Princess Zsa Zsa. But I called her Zsa Zsa, and she said, oh, darling, she says, no one ever calls me Zsa Zsa. So right from the beginning, it was kind of rough with us. We had a bad start.
Did she send you a nasty Christmas card? Did I hear that?
Yeah, she did.
Do you have a copy of it?
I don't know where it went. One of the producers took it, but...
Okay. I think we're going to put it on the screen.
Yeah, I had left her to go work for an airline. And I had sent her a note that, because I know how she comes to Washington a lot. And so I was going to tell her that if she was ever in the Washington area where I've resided, to give me a call. And then I got this card like 3 weeks after I had sent, you know, a very nice note saying, thank you for letting me work for you. And that's the card I got.
Roberto, Miss Gabor is surprised you sent her an Xmas card after the cheap article you sold to Star Magazine. You were the only one who could have done it.
Yeah, and first of all, I just want to say that was the one thing she never got my...
Did you sell a cheap article to Star Magazine?
I have never sold an article. I have never sold a story on Zsa Zsa Gabor, ever. Never, ever, ever.
I mean, that note is in between a joy to you at Christmas and blessings all year long.
But you know, the funny thing is, my name isn't Roberto. She never, ever once got my name right. She gave me a Christmas present, which was a used Seiko watch with makeup on it, and the package said, Carlos, Merry Christmas. I don't know who Carlos was. He must have been the butler or something. I don't know. But
we all look alike.
The Roberto. So.
And I got a leather jacket one time, which I got with me now. I just wanted to put it on really quick and let you see what she considers a big gift. This was out of her closet.
The funny thing on this situation
I'm supposed to be grateful for this. Be grateful.
Just shrink those arms up, son.
The funny thing is, she was always mad at him because he always looked better in her clothes than she did.
Victor Colicchio, the most infamous of... When the hired help tells all.
The two guys that work for Zsa Zsa, after she did all that stuff to you, didn't you ever tell her where to go, you know what I mean?
So that's how eventually everybody leaves. Yeah, telling her where
Actually,
to go.
she never gives you a chance to say anything, so... But, yeah, you can't get a word edgewise with her at all.
My question is for the...
Well, you know,
is it fair to talk about Mr. Sinatra's 15 toupees? And...
Since you were working for such famous people, weren't you always on your guard and, like, worried about how they thought of you and, like...
I got hired because a friend of mine wanted to design dresses for Zsa Zsa. And I had heard from him that he couldn't work for her. He walked out under 2 hours after he was with her. So that's how I got mine. And then after I went from Zsa Zsa, I worked for Gary Collins and Marianne Mobley. And that was through Zsa Zsa's dress designer. So a lot of it, I think a lot of it's word of mouth. Or...
Do you feel sorry for Leona now?
Huge.
By the name of Ricardo?
No, the other one. What was his name? Brian. Well, he probably sue me for that, but we have the thing. He forged 3 of my checks on the City National Bank. I don't know what they done, but anyhow, this is the guy who was on. Ricardo is the one who, he went to Star because you pay about $300-400 for a story like that, and Ricardo needed the money, so he lied. You see, Saks.
What did he lie about?
That I take the clothes back.
Oh, I see. He was the source of return.
Because Saks Fifth Avenue, when you buy these $10 stockings, and if they run down the first time, they exchange it to a new one. And I sent him in to exchange his stockings, so I'm not going to buy a $10 stocking on the first day I run. I'm working for my money. I'm a businessman. So I sent him back with 3 pair, which all run down, and they brought you. And that's how he said I take the clothes back. I know it was him, darling.
So he's saying that this guy Ricardo, Mike, get a hold of this guy Ricardo, because Zsa Zsa's
I don't want to see him.
Zsa Zsa's calling him a liar.
Oh, darling, I don't want to see him. No, Brian.
Oh, wait, it's Ricardo, the liar.
Hello.
Ricardo, why did you...
Ricardo Bustos is Zsa Zsa's former secretary. Now, Ricardo, did you say some naughty things
because
about
I
your
love
former
Ricardo.
employer?
Did you say?
I have never, ever sold a story to the Star magazine on Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Well, what did you sell?
I have never sold nothing.
Was I a good person? Did I love you?
She loved me, but we had our differences at
Well,
times.
of course we did, because I have to bring him up. He's so green yet.
Well, that's she did. No, she did teach me a lot. We did have some fun times, and it was a challenge at times.
Did you publicly say that Zsa Zsa was cheap, to use an indelicate expression?
No, I didn't say she was cheap.
Well, how much did we pay you a week?
$10 an hour.
Isn't that good for a young man who hardly can spell? Let's be objective.
Oh, no. No, why not? Remember the first day I worked for you?
Wait a second. He came to me as a secretary. We hired him as a secretary. He actually was a very sweet. I really liked you. I still like you. And we gave him $10 an hour, which we pay for all secretaries. My other secretary who's with me 20 years get $20 an hour. But these kids who know very little yet, maybe you learn now, gets $10 an hour, which is $80 a day, which is really enough. They get luncheon, is it true? Mm-hmm. And you also get some presents for me, is it true? Mm-hmm. So I think you were highly paid for your knowledge.
Well, yeah, well, we had...
Well, what did you fight about, Ricardo?
We did, well, fight about when he spelled something wrong, when he done something wrong, I screamed at him. Because I'm a businesswoman, I need someone who can be a good secretary. That's why we have Betsy Jens for 20 years. She gets $20 an hour, but she does everything right. Now, this kid was fill-in, is it true?
Yeah.
And he was nice. Then, of course, he got Pally Valley with somebody else, we won't mention it. And then he said he wants to be an airline steward. How long did that job last for you, the airline steward job?
I'm still with an airline.
No, but but when you left me, how long did it last? I think a week.
Which one?
When you left me for the airline steward job. Because
You two could talk after the program. Ricardo, let me get some other questions. That's very interesting.
So, I mean...
Zsa Zsa, I'd like to know how and where you met your husband and how long you've been married.
My husband saw me on television films 5 years ago. Sit on the floor, you.
She always keeps you on your toes.
Sit down. You look gorgeous, thank God. Anyhow, 5 years ago, he knew, before he met me, he saw me and he said he's going to marry me. And then he came to America, and a photographer friend of his introduced him to me, and we fell in love. And 4 years later, we married. I proposed to him because he was too scared to marry me, but I proposed.
Zsa Zsa? Zsa Zsa, you're so beautiful. I'm really...
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A woman
Ricardo,
like me in jail.
Did she treat you like a queen treats a commoner? Is that your
Tell
basic
the truth,
complaint?
Ricardo.
Well, I mean...
I treated him like
we
a little kid.
We were never in the same class. I mean, that's obvious.
Did you dine together? Did you ride the limousine together?
I was never allowed to. And
You drove my car, my God.
No. I drove a Blazer, but I was never allowed to go in a limousine. The example, remember the Arsenio Hall show?
Well, honey, when I go to a show, I take my makeup and hairdo, not my sack.
And then I was not allowed to be seated next to her at that dinner that night.
Which dinner?
Remember at the Laguna?
Well, of course not. Why should a little kid like that sit next to me when we are grown-up men? But I must say one thing.
Okay.
I like Ricardo.
I know, you told me.